Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's mini Masterclass Mondays, y'all. So, I really wanted to briefly talk about your audience or finding your ideal client. So, happy Monday, y'all. This hair, y'all, I don't know what to do with this hair. I think I might have to just cut it off. I know some people like it a little bit, but oof, it's getting to me. Um, but anyway, so thinking about finding your ideal client. Here's the thing: when we, as professionals, in this adult brands, adult industry, we have to think about who we are serving, our ideal client, and why this matters to us. Because a part of it is you just don't want to have like all of that emotional labor. Okay. So when you do this, the key here is to, set realistic customer expectations. But when I began this work, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and probably you have made, is that we try to serve everyone. We're like, everybody needs this information. Everybody come over here, check me out. You need this information. This is foundational for you. I know I did this, and we want to reach, the biggest audience as possible. And although inclusivity is definitely essential, we have to understand that being too broad in our approach can actually dilute the impact that we're making and really make it harder to attract the right people who truly, truly need us. Okay. So part of this is the key to long-term success here is defining and understanding who your ideal client is. Who can you work with? You're like, hell yeah, I want to work with you. You know what I mean? The people who will benefit the most from what you're offering and really ready to invest in you. So when thinking about how you figure that out, you have to think about, I've kind of given like breaking this down as sort of a step-by-step guide, right? To help you identify, attract, and serve your ideal client. The number one thing here you want to do is define your expertise and passion. So before you can even identify your client, you need to be clear on what do you bring to the table. So ask yourself, what areas of my niche, right, light me up the most, right? Where do I have the most knowledge, the most experience, the most, where do I find myself coming back to again and again and again? And or if you see a gap and you can fill the gap, what is the gap that exists that you are uniquely positioned to fill? Okay. So understand defining your niche, you can narrow your focus, attract the people who you are aligned with your strengths, your passion. The next step you want to do is analyze your past and current clients. So if you've already worked with clients, take a deep dive into their characteristics, right? Like who got the best results from working with you? Like, did they get their sex life back? Are they, did they get back on track? Who did you enjoy working with the most, right? Again, who drained you of all their emotional labor and energy that you did not want to experience? Or like what common traits do they have? Maybe it's age, gender, relationship status, orientation, any kind of particular challenges that they might be having. What did they share that a lot of them have in common? And if there are clients that you had that you're like, ooh, this feels really misaligned, or like, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you. What was the reason why that might have been, right? And so looking at all these patterns, seeing the relationship between all these patterns can help you create a clear picture of your ideal client versus the ones that might not be the best fit for you. Okay. They may have the money to pay you, which is nice, but the emotional labor is always more expensive. I cannot tell you this enough. I've been doing my business for 16 years. And it's one of the things that like emotional labor takes so much out of you. And even though somebody's paying you, and sometimes you're like, I don't want to take that money, but you're like, oof, that was mentally exhausting. And you don't want to be in that position. The third step is identifying their needs, desires, and pain points. So to serve your ideal client effectively, you must understand what are their biggest challenges when it comes to whatever their the problems are, right? What are their desires and goals? What fears or hesitations do they have about seeking help, right? And what kind of language do they use to describe their struggles? Okay. One of the best ways to gather this information is through surveys, direct conversations, or by engaging with communities where your ideal clients spend time. Maybe it's Facebook groups, maybe it's Reddit, maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's the Gram, maybe it's YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever the case may be. Where do they spend time? Number 4, get clear on their demographics and psychographics, okay? So you want to go beyond those basic demographics, that age, location, relationship status, etc., right? And dive more into the psychographics. How do they think? What do they value? How do they make their everyday decisions? How are they making the decisions to come and see you, right? So things you need to consider. Are they looking for education, coaching, therapy, entertainment? What are they looking for? Do they value research-backed academic approaches? Like, do you need to throw the science at them? Or do they prefer a more conversational and intuitive style? Like, oh yeah, I did that. Or I remember I went to that club and did this or whatever, right? Are they willing and able to invest financially in their growth? Okay. And how do they typically consume content, right? Is it podcasts? Is it blogs? Is it videos? Is it workshops? Is it lives? How do they typically consume all of this content that when they're trying to help themselves? So the more details you gather, the more targeted your messaging can be, okay? Next, you want to create a client avatar. And this is, so now that you have a wealth of information, right? You're doing the work. So you have a wealth of information. Create a detailed profile of your ideal client. You want to give them a name, a story, characteristics that make them feel real. And I mean, you can get this from, picking part pieces of people who you have worked with. So for example, there's, I have a client avatar, Jade. Meet Jade, 38-year-old polyamorous Black woman navigating ethical non-monogamy, struggling with communication in her relationships, wants a sex positive, culturally competent guide who understands the intersections of race and sexuality, prefers online workshops and self-paced courses, willing to invest in coaching, but needs flexible payment options, right? So this avatar can guide your marketing, your messaging, your service offerings, ensuring that you're speaking directly to the people who need you the most, okay? So sit down and do this. And then, of course, you always got to go back, right? You always got to test and refine, figure out, okay, is this the client avatar? Is this marketing helping? And if I go to this particular channel, is that going to be great for me? So once you've identified your ideal client, it's time to put your insights into action. Start creating content, programs, services specifically tailored to them. Pay attention to who's engaging with your work, who is converting into a paying client, and whether your assumptions hold true. So if something isn't quite clicking, you got to refine your avatar. Maybe they're older. Maybe Jade isn't 38. Maybe she's 45, right? And going through perimenopause. Maybe your ideal client is slightly younger or older, or maybe they respond better to one service over another, right? You want to keep tweaking until you consistently attract people who resonate with your message and are excited to work with you. So remember, this can take time. Give yourself some grace when it comes to finding that perfect client. It took me some years to find my perfect clients. And I think a lot of that had to do with sometimes just saying who I am as a person. When we are in maybe education or therapy, people try to say, oh, don't talk about yourself. But what I realized is like putting my identities on my website really attracted the people that I wanted, right? So now I have these polyamorous and swinging couples and kinky couples and people who want to explore and all sorts of folks who are in my wheelhouse, right? And the way that I show up for them is going to be great. And it's not so emotionally taxing because like I can resonate with them, okay? So that might be something to think about as well when you're thinking about for your work. And then last step, really align your marketing and messaging. So now that you know like who you want to serve, make sure your brand speaks directly to them. Okay. So using the language and phrases your ideal client uses, addressing their specific pain points and desires in your marketing, showing up where they are, again, the social media platforms that they are, maybe the conferences, communities, parties, wherever they are, the sex clubs, wherever they are, you're showing up, okay? And then, of course, sharing testimonials and success stories that resonate with their experiences. When you work with a client, make sure you get these testimonials. Make sure you're getting that feedback, because this is going to help feed that wheel. I just got my my feedback from a class I was doing for therapist training, and the feedback was so marvelous. It made me feel so good, and I was like, yes. And I'm like, I need to put this. These testimonials are perfect for people to say, like, oh wow, yeah, Marla's doing great work. It was so great. They wanted more time. I spent 4 hours with them, and that 4 hours went by so fast. And they're like, we want more time with Marla. So that made me feel really good. And so helping them, so your messaging should basically make them feel seen, make them feel understood, like like you're speaking directly to them. Okay. So understand, finding your ideal client isn't just about making money. It's about doing meaningful, transformative work with people who truly need what you offer. So when you focus on serving the right people, your impact deepens, your business is thriving, more people are going to look to you, and your work becomes even more fulfilling. So take the time to get clear on who your ideal client is. And once you do, everything from your content to your client relationships will become more intentional and effective. So if you have your ideal client, please drop a comment below. Let's discuss who your ideal client is. I would love to know. If you need help, please feel free to email me, DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. So I hope you enjoyed today's little mini masterclass. Thank you all for joining me. Ooh, y'all, I got to go back to the bald. I'm just struggling with hair. Any advice you can give me on how to do hair? Because, I really haven't done it in a long time. Let me know. But anyway, thank you all. If you haven't applied to be in my Be Successful official program, please check it out, successful.biz. If you haven't had your free shadow band survival guide, please make sure you get that. You can just go to velvetlips.kit.com/shadowband guide. And of course, you can always ask me questions anytime, and I'm happy to answer those. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next Monday. What are we talking about next Monday? Oh, we'll talk about it next Monday. All right, y'all. Have a good one, and stay safe out there. All right. Bye, y'all.